belated happy Monday. It is August 4th here on the Pats Interference Podcast, brought to you by the grand, gleaming, and glamorous CLNS Media Network. And when I think of grand, gleaming, and glamorous, there's no one else in the Patriots beat I really think of aside from Mark Daniels of MassLive. Thank you for joining us after the first practice of this week, 10th overall. Long day today, as we were just chatting off air.
Yeah, speaking of gleaming, man, I'm feeling it. Feeling it after a long day in the sun, a long 2 weeks, 10 days of camp, man. Everyone comments on my tan. I'm like, it's a farmer's tan. It's training camp. I look ridiculous. You should see my foot tan right now. It's absurd. But yeah, I'm definitely gleaming. It's been a long camp.
Yeah, it's been a good camp though, and I appreciate you steering clear of the bald joke because that was just a layup from me to you, and instead of spiking it back on my bald head, my gleaming head, you were a good friend about that. So here's the plan today. You and I are going to chat about guys on the roster bubble because for the first time in years, this is an interesting conversation around the Patriots. Wherein last year it was, can you get to 53? If they could have had a 48-man roster, would they have taken that? This year, you have people sliding up and down, and what we saw at practice here today was honestly a shuffling of the depth chart at certain positions, which we'll get to in a second. After this, I have a conversation with your colleague, our pal, Chris Mason, who was down in North Carolina, and we spent 20 minutes because he visited our other old pal, Bill Belichick, and what I'm calling the Bill Belichick-in here on the podcast. But that is for Chris. That is for later. For now, what did you take away from today? I did a 3-minute recap or whatever I've been doing the show, but in terms of the shuffling of the depth chart, because to me that was the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, the offensive line shuffling shocked me a little bit, and I'm talking about the second team. All of a sudden, Ben Brown, Garrett Bradbury's back, for those who don't know. So he's the starter to start practice, obviously. But Ben Brown, the backup center, all of a sudden is the left guard on the second team. That allowed Cole Strange to continue getting reps at center, which just tells me the Patriots don't see Cole Strange as a guard anymore. And if he's going to make the team or another team, it's going to be, they think it'll be at center. But the thing that shocked me, and maybe this isn't a big name, but Demontre Jacobs, the first 9 days of camp was the swing tackle. He was rotating in at right tackle, Morgan Moses. And all of a sudden it's Marcus Bryant. People might not know. He's a 7th round pick. He was, who was his famous teammate out of there? The a really good tackle. And I'm blanking on his name, but he played with someone in Missouri, Armand Membu. He played with Armand Membu last year in college, who was the 1st round pick. And Marcus Bryant is sort of an afterthought with that program. Pat drafted him in the 7th round. And today he's the backup right tackle. And then all of a sudden at the end of practice, Morgan Moses leaves, and we don't know if it's because of the pitch count or whatever. But Marcus Bryant, the 7th round pick, is the starting right tackle. I'm like, wait a minute, you have 3 rookies in the starting offensive line. You have a left guard, Jared Wilson has been great. Will Campbell has been up and down. And Marcus Bryant, who I would have never guessed would have taken a first-team rep in training camp. So, that shocked me, honestly. It's been a lot of shuffling in the depth chart. The offensive line, it's all over the place. Caden Wallace wasn't there. City So wasn't there. So they're hurting for sure. But, man, 7th round pick, the starters, the end of practice, I would have never predicted that, man. Never. That's a bold prediction that I would have not made.
Normally cause for a 5-alarm fire, even this early in training camp, that your 7th round rookie tackle is getting starting reps. I would say it's not a 5-alarm fire right now. There's probably a 1 or a 2 because, any source of pessimism for the Patriots heading into the season, where there is a lot of optimism, people going, I'll take the over on 7.5 and 8.5, 9.5 wins, is the offensive line, which, like you said, already had 2 rookies, Marcus Bryant in there, because let's be clear, they are load managing Morgan Moses, who's 34 and going into year 12. They're not going to give him every single rep. He doesn't need it. He was also, by the way, undefeated in one-on-one pass rush after what's been a shaky start. But whether it was Bryant or the guys you mentioned who were not there today, City So and Caden Wallace, those are all bubble guys. I would currently have most of them out, but what we're going to do here is go in or out on a bigger list because this is evolving. Obviously, they haven't played a preseason yet, but I know for a fact the Patriots have a 53-man roster. If cutdown day was tomorrow and Mike Vrabel showed up to work at 6 a.m. and he had to hand in a roster at 6:01, he could do it. So right now, moving to a different position, which is also stacked with some slightly better names, but a reason to doubt the Patriots, wide receiver. Kendrick Bourne. You and I know this. One pass caught from Drake May until Friday's scrimmage when he catches another pass and gets hurt. Vrabel said today he's expected to be out for at least a week. I'll tell you this. I would not be surprised if he's out closer to 2. That said, if he's on the roster today, but you have to cut people tomorrow, Is he in or out on your 53-man roster?
It pains me to say he's out. I think he's like the best guy to have in the locker room. He's such a good dude. It's not overstated either. He brings great energy, but I'll be honest, he hasn't. I don't think he's shown much. He's been with the twos almost all of camp, and as you said, 2 catches from Drake May through 10 practices. And the truth is, you think about the roster locks. There's 5. I mean, automatically, it's Diggs, Pup. I think Booty, Kyle Williams, and Matt Collins are making the team. So then it's like, all right, you take 1 or 2. And the pro of Kendrick Bourne is that what I just said, great dude. He knows Josh McDaniel's offense. He's not going to hurt you. I do wonder if your last spot or two, you try to throw a dart and go for potential. So for me, I say out. I would honestly take Javon Baker, which is a massive change in my opinion, because I think Javon Baker, what he's done the last 4 or 5 practices, it's like every day he does something, and I'm like, man, he has so much natural talent that I would keep him on the bottom of my roster. And I don't feel necessarily the same way about Jalen Pope, who I think still has to show more. But I think for me, keeping 6 or 7, I would lean towards some of the younger guys, just based up where this program's going. That's tough for me to say. I like Kendrick, but I would just say out. He looks a little slower to me this year, and he hasn't flashed as much as he had in the past.
No, that's absolutely accurate. And I think your first point was the most salient one, in that you could argue there are 5 roster locks, and I would agree with you. And they go Diggs, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams, Kayshon Boutte, who had a great catch today to end practice. And it's not the volume with him, it's just his level of efficiency with those targets. Like, he's more often than not coming down with them in key situations. And Spot today was in the red zone. And then Matt Collins, who, has only practiced twice, but he's running with the starters in the first walkthrough when he comes back, right? He's playing X. They're moving him to Z a little bit. He's been in the offense, yada, yada. He's ahead of Kendrick Bourne, and Kendrick Bourne has been practicing a whole lot more than him. So the only way right now, barring injury, that Bourne makes the roster, meaning other injuries, is the starting point is they roster 6 guys, which might not even be the case. And that speaks loudest. I would just a 52-48, yes. And not because I think any more of his performance in camp than you do. I just think sometimes the veterans, when you think, okay, so-and-so gets hurt, it's Booty, it's Diggs, or whatever, we need to have someone come off of the bench and produce.
Yeah.
He's built up more equity, not only just in the offense, but here producing where he's a little bit more reliable. That said, if they could flip him in a 7th or a 5th or pick whatever trade out of a hat that you want, I think that would appeal, because they also feel okay about the guys behind him, some of whom you mentioned.
Yeah. I agree with you. You make a good point. You know what you get in Kendrick Bourne, right? You don't know what you get, truthfully, in Javon Baker, certainly. You don't know what you're even going to get in Jalen Polk. And it's been really interesting to see even how the reps have been divvied up this year, because we noted like Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, and Kendrick Bourne really don't get much time at all with the ones. So it'd be fascinating to me just to see how many receivers they even keep, 6 or 7. There's a part of me hopes they keep 7, honestly, because I like those guys. It's like, can you afford to do that? Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, his stock is down. That's where we can live this. Whether you would keep him on or off, he is much closer to the chopping block than people expected. All right, another former offensive starter. You hit on him earlier. Cole Strange might have to play center in order to make the team. And that's because otherwise he has been a left guard. And within the first 10 practices, he loses his job to Jared Wilson, who, credit to him, has been very good. Down practice today, but whatever. He's outperformed. The team is happier with Jared Wilson than they are with Cole Strange. And this is another case of a player that the Vrabel regime inherited and goes, we don't know you anything. You have to prove to us. And when you've got guys like Cade Wallace at a new position, who's younger, cheaper, and you could argue more talented, doesn't have the positional versatility. City So, who can play both guard spots. Like, this is not only just a guy like Bourne who's played closer to the bubble. It's he might not have as much to offer than the guys that he just joined there, who might be anywhere from the 52nd to 58th guy on the team.
Yeah. And if it's me, I think right now I'm leaning out with him, because I was thinking about this today. Like, you could argue, all right, he's technically taking reps as the backup center, but he's clearly not. It's Ben Brown is the backup center.
Yeah.
And then you could also argue Jared Wilson might also be 2 or 3, realistically. So, like, you have 3 centers on the roster who the team probably likes better than Cole Strange. They clearly don't like him enough at left guard, because they were also playing Caden Wallace there, a little bit over him. Like, I think he's out. I think he's a guy you try to trade to a West Coast team who wants a like a lighter, faster guard or center. And maybe he just doesn't fit in with that McDaniels mold. You know, like you almost feel bad for him in a sense because that was the year obviously Matt Patricia took over and they're going to switch to this West Coast offense that didn't fit. And maybe he would fit in a little bit more with Alex Van Pelt, you know, someone like that. But I think they want more of that, like, you know, strong hulking guard again. You know, not that like Jared Wilson's huge, but like Mike Uwenu fits in the Josh McDaniels system, and Jared Wilson clearly is the left guard of the future. So if it's me, he's probably out because I think you'll have 3 centers on the roster. You know, Garrett Bradbury, Jared Wilson, and Ben Brown. And Ben Brown playing left guard today, kind of a death sentence, I think, for Cole Strange's stock with the Patriots.
And he didn't miss a snap today, but there were a couple you're like, whew, thank God Josh Dobbs' arm length is what it is and not like an inch or two shorter because he got to those in a way that other quarterbacks wouldn't. I'm with you. It is interesting, the scheme conversation, because I think we've seen more zone running from McDaniel's offense this year, particularly paired with the bootleg actions that they're going to use now with May and capitalize mobility. I think it just might be the fact that Cole's just as good as we all thought coming out of the draft, right? Like when he got picked and we're all doing, are you effing kidding me? Sean McVay is doing, are you effing kidding me? Kid out of Chattanooga, wow, first round, blah, blah, blah. If we picture him and think of him as a 3rd round pick, and he's competing with other guys who were 3rd round picks, Caden Wallace and Jared Wilson, and the older guy who's not proven a whole lot is this good. That's where he should be. You know, backup guy trying a new position to hang around. You're going to go with the newer picks who certainly outperforming him so far. Like that, I think might just be where his talent is. And I'm with you. I'm leaning a little out on Cole Strange. Granted, with 3 preseason games and a lot to go.
Yeah, and the patella tendon injury too. I mean, he missed a lot of football, you know, and things like that. You know, they can ruin careers, and you know maybe that plays into it too. Because the thing on Cole Strange is he was supposed to be super athletic. You have a crazy knee injury where he like admitted he had to relearn to walk. That may also play a part into it.
You want tough guys, Mark? You draft guys like Cole Strange. You want to get faster? You draft fast guys.
Man, what a draft class! What a time to be alive.
Oh, macro. I think right where he should be now, like 4th or 5th in the front office. We mentioned Caden Wallace. Let's do this one quickly and go on some other positions. He's a guy whose potential I like, and I wish, honestly, that if they could cross-train him left guard and right tackle because, you know, like you just said, Demontre Jacobs and Marcus Bryant are their backup options there right now, which you don't really love, especially behind a 34-year-old Morgan Moses. But Wallace has been out the last couple of practice, left the scrimmage early and was out today. Is he in or out for you?
So I'm saying in because of the potential, but man, I think it's just a bad offseason for him. Like you think about it, they drafted a college right tackle to play left tackle, and 1 year later they're moving him to left guard. It's a sign they don't see him at the position they drafted him. And the reason they drafted Caden Wallace at the top of the 3rd round was to be a tackle. And I thought initially going in, he would be the backup behind Morgan Moses. Like, all right, you developed Caden Wallace behind Morgan Moses, and you have your right tackle of the future. Clearly not. Right? Like clearly not. They're trying to find a spot for him to like play. And like the fact that we started this summer with like Demontre Jacobs and Marcus Bryant as your backup tackles and Caden Wallace playing left guard, I was like, man, what an indictment of what this team, this new coaching staff thinks of him. It's like, I think the stock on him is way down, but I do think he sticks around. I do think he has potential. He's really smart. He's really athletic. And I think you can keep a guy like that as a backup for at least another year. You know, you can play the potential card in year 2. He's a little bit older, but, you know, come year 3, if you don't see it, he's gone.
Yeah, this is another guy where I think it's a numbers game. And if I'm the Patriots, I lean towards keeping 9 offensive linemen, maybe 10 initially. And some of that you can toy with, you know, the game day elevations and you get an extra offensive lineman, yada, yada. And that's cool. I do think, though, if you would cut Caden Wallace, he gets claimed off waivers immediately because you have teams that saw him as a tackle like the 2024 Patriots did. And then teams that see him as a guard as the 2025 Patriots do. And they go, he was just in a crappy situation and sacrificed really because of the team needs last year, the way they were jerking him around left tackle, right tackle. Now he's a guard and he gets hurt. Like there's just, you give him some time and space to just grow on a natural path. He should be able to find a regular roster spot on talent alone. Let's go to the backfield. Ramondre Stevenson lock, Trayvon Henderson lock for the Patriots Hall of Fame. It's what we've seen through 10 practices here so far. Antonio Gibson lock. Land Larison in or out?
You know, my first 53, I had him out, and I regretted it. I like him. He's fast. I do wonder if, though, these, like, younger, undrafted running backs, if it's really easy to get them on the practice squad, you know, like, how many running backs are there that are going to get cut come cut down day? So I'm going to lean out, honestly. Granted, I don't know. This is a hard one. I'm like 50-50 on them. It's a terrible answer, but like I like their depth up front with Stevenson, Travion, and I like Antonio. I honestly have always been an Antonio Gibson fan. I think he can, he's someone who can just, he can break off a 70-yard run any chance. It's nice to have that. The question is, can you carry 3 running backs and have 2 on the practice squad? I would argue you can. So I guess for this exercise, I'm going to say out. I'll stick with my 53-man roster I put up today, yesterday, whatever the day it is. So I'm going to say out. I like him, though. I like his potential. He's one of the guys I can't wait to see come the preseason. I could see him, kind of popping off and fans really liking him.
We were talking amongst, I don't know who was there today in the media tent about like, maybe it was you and I, Efton Chisholm, big Twitter fan. We all get why. He's in New England. He's going to get a little bit more love. And he had one spectacular grab today. No one is taking that away from him. He also had 3 other targets, and 2 of them were broken up right in front of him. The other one sailed wide, and the last one's not his fault. But in terms of like the body of work, that's a guy not making the roster. And with Lan Larison, I think what he needs to show, not me, but to the coaching staff, if he's kept as a 4th running back, is a little bit more on special teams. Like we can count on you to be a core guy in the way that they are with guys like Christian Ellis and Jack Gibbons and Jalen Hawkins, and even Marte Mapu's in the mix as like a personal punt protector. I also have him out for the reason that you just mentioned. And I think it's one that, we get so into the weeds and fans get so into the weeds on the Patriots, and the roster projections. And you can tell me the 4th string center. And sometimes I forget. When you zoom out and consider the league's perspective on guys like that, as you just said, undrafted running back, what are the chances we couldn't just bring him back? And he would be like, yeah, I want to sign with the team that gave me whatever it was in guarantees. It was pretty high coming out of college. And I've been coaching and I like it here. Why do I want to move? And if it's up to him and he doesn't get claimed on waivers, yeah, you stash him. And when someone gets hurt, because the running back inevitably will, that's an easy promotion.
Yeah, I think back to a guy like Kevin Harris. Like he was a stud in college and was 6th-round pick for the Patriots, and he was always one of those guys like borderline. But like they were able to get Kevin Harris on the practice squad and call him up a little bit. Like so, yeah, I think it's easier to stash running backs. I mean, he'd really have to go off in the preseason, I think, for a team to claim him.
Yeah, that was the other part of my Efton Chisholm thought is that. Efton takes a 30-yard punt return, and we're all talking about it on Saturday or Monday, whenever we reconvene. Lan Larison rips off a run. He had a touchdown run of the scrimmage like that. That's a big stock soaring. We're talking about him a lot more than we are right now.
Efton Chisholm, in a way, this is a bad comp. It was like back in the day, Patriot fans were nuts about Austin Carr, who in training camp was like a white, slower slot receiver. But in training camp, when Pats came on, he wasn't impressive because he was slower. Now, he got claimed by the Saints. He didn't really do much, and it wasn't a surprise. It's like he's a practice squad guy. Like, Efton Chisholm's a little bit better, I think, than Austin Carr because he'll do what he did today in practice and have a diving catch. But, like, we talked about the receivers already. Efton Chisholm has 0 targets from Drake May in training camp, and other guys do. We have 5, 6, 7, 8 other receivers do, So, like, he's so far down. But you're right. If one of those guys can, like, kickoff returner, punt returner, do something like that, man, spot, whatever it is, 53, 52. That's where it goes.
Going to be leading off a lot of shows, a lot of calls. Someone in Revere or somewhere else. Just, I don't know, there's something about the kid. Give me Lan Larison. Let's go to corner. Christian Gonzalez lock, Carlton Davis, if he ever appears in material form somewhere in the practice field. Marcus Jones lock, Alex Austin lock. Marcellus Dial gets hurt today and would look like, at least to me, I don't know about you, potentially, underscore, potentially, serious knee injury. Left leg was down for like 2 minutes, gets carted off. Which brings me then to DJ James, who would be, in this scenario, their 5th corner, whereas before that would have been Marcellus Dial, who would have been okay on the outside to bad, but decent as a backup nickel, and your starting gunner opposite Brennan Schooler. DJ James, in or out?
In, man. In.
Yeah.
I like him. 6th-round pick for the Seahawks a year ago, landed on the Pats practice squad. I think a lot of us honestly forgot about him. He's got good ball skills. He in the final 2-minute drive today, he broke up a pass on Drake May while covering Kyle Williams, and that sort of speaks to what he can do. I mean, I think for a backup, you may have found a little, I call him an under the radar gem. I like cornerbacks like that. He's hilarious too, Andrew. Like, he talks about himself in the third person. I am in. Yeah. He's like DJ James sees the ball and gets the ball. I'm like, yeah, man, make the roster, please. I want to talk to this guy some more after games. But like, it's been interesting because someone I didn't think about has slowly climbed the roster, slowly climbed the depth chart. Like all of a sudden, him and Alex Austin are the two backups. And I think DJ James has surpassed like Isaiah Bolden, for example. And
Yes.
I think he's a better cover corner than Marcellus Dial. Marcellus Dial is probably a better core special teamer though. So, but I like DJ James, man. He's hilarious. And I think he makes the team.
Dial's injury brings me to Terrell Williams, who we should just mention quickly today, even though everyone just tweeted about it. Left practice early. Their defensive coordinator was away for a long time in the offseason due to the still unspecified medical leave, which you could read into his comments and deduce it's probably one of a couple of things we won't do that here. The point is treated for dehydration, and seems to be okay. We will see about that tomorrow when they have practice again. But just one note, and of course, we wish well for Terrell. DJ James, I'm with you. I think he makes the team. I think Dial's injury changes that for them. He is a more natural cover corner, whereas Dial is probably a better athlete. But for now, the way he's running with the starting defense, which is, of course, due to injuries, right? That's reason number one. But number two, to your point, like he has left Isaiah Bolden, who's been around and is also a super athlete and not playing quite as well as him. So he's in for me. Let's stay in the secondary and do two at once. Because I think when you look at safety, there are obvious locks. Kyle Duggar, by the way, taking second team reps, a lot of them today. Jabril Peppers, Jalen Hawkins, who's absolutely making the team. Craig Woodson, that's 4. If you want to count Brendan Schooler, we're already at 5. Del Pettis or Marcus Epps? In, out, in, where are we at?
Here's the thing. I really like Del Pettis as a backup safety and a core special teamer. I was doing it. You have so many safeties. I think they might be out. Or is this a situation you could trade someone? Like you said about Kyle Duggar. I don't know if the Pats would trade Kyle Duggar, but like I don't know if you trade Kyle Duggar to keep Del Pettis. That doesn't make much sense. I'm being an idiot, but I like the safety depth and so much that I'm like I like Del Pettis, but I don't know if I can keep him to be like safety number 5, or like a core special teamer. Maybe if it's me, I'm probably keeping the extra receiver just because I like receivers and I want the potential, but. I think Epps is probably out. I think Dell might be out. I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good problem to have. We'll say that. Where are you on this? This is a tough one.
So I can say with pretty good certainty, both of these guys are on the bubble for the team. And with that in mind, I still think they're fighting for one roster spot because, all it takes is one injury and whether it's Hawkins on special teams or Craig Woodson, the rookie, like you'd like to have a good, heady, reliable fourth safety. Mm-hmm. And you have that right now, but inevitably you might need a fifth. And in worst case scenario, he's just a healthy scratch, right? Like useful player. If you keep Pettis, it's developmental. If it's Marcus Epps, it's a development thing. My point is that I just have not seen enough from Del Pettis in this system to go, they'll pick him now as of August 4th. Over Marcus Epps whom they signed, even though Epps absolutely could be cut. There are no cap penalties that would prohibit them from being like, sorry, thank you for your time. I'm just going to lean the veteran very, very slightly because I do think they keep 5, 6 if you include Schooler because of the way that they're going to use it. And they play a lot of base nickel or big nickel. And that involves a lot of safeties. And these guys are at least average, like I'd rather have decent football players than be hanging on to a fourth running back I don't totally believe in.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And, thinking about this, like Marcus Epps, former captain in Las Vegas, he was there with Josh McDaniels. I mean, he might also be a guy that, like we talked about Kendrick Bourne, that you want around, you want in the locker room. Maybe he's that type of guy that Vrabel is trying to change the culture here, clearly. And maybe Marcus Epps is a part of that.
Yeah. Okay. I have 3 players that I want you to pick one from, and then we'll go around the depth chart and see if we missed anybody else. Here are those 3 players. G. Scott, who we got to talk to today, seems delightful. Undrafted rookie out of Ohio State. Very normal, good guy. Jalen Polk, who we are familiar with. And honestly, if I was good friends with Jalen, I would say stay away from Mark Daniels. That man gets all the worst quotes out of you. And we appreciate it to get to know Jalen and just wrong season. And then Truman Jones, who's a Harvard kid, Chiefs last year, second-year player, who started or got a couple of reps when Harold Landry was sitting at practice on Wednesday. And Mike Vrabel had a big embrace for him before that practice started. And that was, hey, go take your chance today. He's been decent in one-on-ones. So Truman Jones, G. Scott, or Jalen Polk, who do you want to talk about?
Man, when you first said it, I was going to say Jalen Polk. Truman Jones is interesting to me because, like, who backs up Keon White? And, like, for those who don't know, the defensive end of Mike Vrabel's system is pretty specific. It's players sort of built like Keon White. There's just not a lot of them, and I guess you could argue one of the defensive tackles could do it. But I do wonder if Truman Jones, offseason award winner, good dude, coaching staff likes him, can sort of fit in there and give them, a backup they like behind Keon White. Whereas Jalen Polk, you're talking about receiver 6 or 7. G. Scott, you're talking about receiver 3 or 4. So I think there's more potential for Truman Jones to help out in a backup role than the other two guys. So I'll go with the Harvard grad.
I'm with you. I have him on. G. Scott is closer to me than Jalen Polk, and it's just as simple as on-field performance as well as his availability, and just didn't see it. Like it's not jarring. Jarring is overstated. Surprising to me what we saw of Jalen Polk last summer. Capable, seems like a normal, regular, fits here NFL receiver. And then everything we've seen since was nothing like we saw in training camp, which maybe is a lesson, maybe it's not. I don't know. Point is, I'm taking Truman Jones as well. G. Scott is closer. I would leave him off, though, because I think to the point about the undrafted running backs, like no one's clamoring for G. Scott pending his preseason performance, which could totally change all of this around. And I would say the Patriots have no options with their third tight end right now. Like, if you don't want G. Scott, I'm not positive you're taking Jaheim Bell. Jack Westover is like playing fullback now because they all meet in the same room and they're taught when they have regular fullbacks. I think they would rather just sign a fullback off the street. That's where I think this number 3 tight end conversation goes, and they only keep Austin Hooper and Andre Henry.
I agree. You keep the 2 veterans, and honestly, you could sign someone who probably gets cut, or honestly sign G. Scott and Jack Westover to the practice squad and elevate them if you really need it. Yeah, but I'm with you there. I have been not impressed with the backup tight end competition.
It's been horrible. It's like one of my least favorite part of camp.
Yeah, they're not like Jaheim Bell's been disappointing, and Jack Westover just doesn't really do much. Like he's getting a lot of reps. He's had a ton of reps. He's the number 3 tight end on the roster, or he has been for like the bulk of first 8-9 days. But like snooze fest, man. Snooze. They need Austin Hooper just to be healthy and Hunter Henry to be healthy, and they'll find someone on the practice squad.
On that note, Patriots first rep of 7-on-7s today. 22 personnel. Henry, Hooper, Stevenson, and Henderson, which is just a different way of saying we want you to put your biggest, slowest players in the field. Hopefully they suck in pass defense, and we'll find one to pick on because the Patriots feel like they've got good options, obviously, in Henry and Hooper, but more Trayvon Henderson, who we haven't talked a whole lot about today, but has been awesome. All right, so we hit running back, receiver, now just tight end, offensive line. We have not really talked about the defensive line. Truman Jones counts as the edge. Inside linebacker, tell me if I'm wrong, there's going to be 4 guys. Robert Spillane, Christian Ellis, Jelani Tavai, again, like Carlton Davis, if he ever isn't a ghost, and Jack Gibbons. That sound right?
Yeah, it is right. The thing with Tavai, I always wondered, and this is not about his play on the field last year. He was fine for the Pats. Let him in tackles. Does he fit in Mike Vrabel's system? It's technically no. I mean, Mike Vrabel, you average it out. He wants an inside linebacker who's around 230 pounds, lighter, faster. That's not Tavai. Tavai's built like an edge guy. He's like 255. It's different. He's better in the Gerard Mayo, Bill Belichick system. But like his contract is essentially guaranteed. You cut it, you're going to pay him a lot of money. I don't know if he's a trade candidate, but I also agree that like the 4 guys you mentioned are far better than the other guys. So it's like you're going to trade Jelani Tavai to keep Monty Rice just because he played in Mike Vrabel's system.
If anyone would even take Jelani Tavai, because last I checked, Juwan Bentley, who he played with last year, still doesn't have a team. And that guy is not 250 anymore. Tavai, to his credit, was rotating with Christian Ellis in the first few practices, which means he was rotating with the starters. Like Robert Spillane is the 3-down signal caller, and then you've got Ellis next to him. And like even despite that size difference, I think there's something about his play that they do like, because I mean, he's a violent dude. I just always thought they might flex him onto the edge, as we often saw in the last system. That has not happened, but he will need to contribute on special teams, certainly if he wants to hang around as the 3rd or 4th inside linebacker. For now, who could replace him? I don't know, but those are definitely the 4 guys. We hit on corner, safety. So defensive line, let's finish here.
Yeah.
Keon White, Milt Williams, Christian Barmore, and my guy, Kyrie's Tonga, not going anywhere.
No. I like him.
I think Joshua Farmer makes it. Jaquelin Roy, and Jeremiah Farms Jr. Roy is the one that I'm like, but I think because of the scheme that they want to run in this constant attacking style of defense, rotate bodies, keep fresh, like all this different stuff, and this will factor into the edge conversation because right now I just have 4 there. You could count Keon, so this is maybe 6 and 5 versus 7 and 4. between D linemen and edge guys, Harold Landry, K'Lavon Chaisson, Braden Swinson, and Truman Jones. Any disagreements there or any thoughts?
Well, I guess the name you didn't mention is Anthony Jennings.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's the Anthony Jennings conversation is fascinating to me because I really think he's a good player. I think he's underrated. I don't think he fits in the system. He is a run stopping edge rusher. And like you said, you have, K'Lavon Chaisson's probably one of the biggest surprises at camp. He's definitely making the team. He's a speed pass rusher. He's going to add an element. Harold Landry, you hope he can get back and give you 8 to 10 sacks. Like, he's not going anywhere. Those are going to be your top 2 guys. And Braden Swinson, shows some potential. And he's, part of this draft class, Mike Vrabel's first draft class. You think they're going to keep him. So what do you do with Anthony Jennings, who's probably a solid player in a better system? For me, it's a trade target, right? I don't think they're going to cut Anthony Jennings. I don't know what you're going to get from him, but I think at the end of the day, there's another team who could probably utilize him because he's solid. He's solid against the run. Honestly, he might be better against the run than Chaisson is. He might be better against the run, than some of these other guys. And he probably is. But what Mike Vrabel wants his, edge rushers to do, outside linebackers, pin your ears back and go get the quarterback. That's just not Anthony Jennings.
No, it's not. And that's borne out. I mean, he started with the third team defense in minicamp. Whoa, whose coach's doorstep did he poop on, and run away? Like, what happened here? But I agree with you. And he could certainly earn his way back into the conversation for me just because of that start. And he's had some flash plays. I had him down for a sack today, which granted it was an extended play kind of scramble drill thing. It could happen. But for now, for all the reasons you just mentioned, he's bigger, slower. That's not his game. It's never been his game. The way that they want to play fast, violent, and just Milton Williams said it last week. There's no read and react. It's just like see ball, get ball, and over time wear on offensive lines, and that's just not Anthony Jennings. All right, we have practice tomorrow, Tuesday. Joint practices Wednesday versus the Commanders, which is always one of the best days to cover this team. Off day Thursday, preseason game Friday. Anything you could pick a day, a practice, a game, with a parting thought or shot about what we're going to see and it should look for from this team?
Man, I hope Drake May plays better. I hope he plays better. I think he finished practice 3 of 11 after he started 8 of 11. Had a rough in-practice stadium on Friday. I want to see him do it against the Commanders in joint practices. The preseason is sort of whatever. I'm always fascinated, Andrew, the joint practices, how these guys actually look against other team starters, when they're actually really trying. Preseason games are sort of whatever to me. But like, man, I can't wait for the joint practice on Wednesday. And I hope, Drake May takes a step and has a consistent day.
Yeah. I called him Drake Meh on my last episode. Fair?
It's very fair, man. He like flashes and you see it. And then there are days like today, he goes 6 straight passes, not a completion. You're saying, man, and we noted Carlton Davis is not playing. Christian Gonzalez is not playing. Marcellus Dial left. So it's like, come on, man. Your corners are DJ James and Alex Austin. There was like a play today. Marcus Jones is covering Matt Collins in the red zone. And I say to Karen, Drake just has to go immediately. And he throws them basically to a point where Hollins can't get his feet in bounds. Yep. You got to have those plays. You got to have those matchups. And Drake May needs to be a little bit better. And, so what I'm looking for, man, right there, Wednesday, joint practice, go off, Drake. Go up against Jaden Daniels on the other side. Just go off, kid.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be some fun yapping. I don't know. I presume they're healthy. I hope they're healthy. Jonathan Jones, Cedric Wise, old Patriots coming back. White, by the way, pretty strongly insinuated he was going to pick a fight with them, but he shouldn't be on the field at the same time as either of them. Both of them are going to be playing defense. You don't know entirely what Keon's thought process is or whether he's serious or not because he's just so GD serious all the time. That's what I have my eye on because we will not be able to shoot video of that if that fight happens or anything. But I'd be curious if, Jay Jones, especially with the experience of practicing against Drake, maybe gets him once or twice because frankly, the interceptions do not bother me as much as some of the conservatism. And I think it's wise to play the long game like it seems like Josh McDaniels is to just instill this discipline and protection of the ball at all costs. We're going to be a defensive team. We want to run the hell out of the ball. It's the only thing our offensive line should help us be able to do. Lean into that. And yet that's not who he is. That's not his game. So I don't think you can check that box and be like, okay, yeah, now he's a good, as we would say, passer of the football, protector of the football, right?
Yeah.
But I think those flash plays come with a little bit of risk that so far he's not been willing to take. And granted, the accuracy's been scattershot. These are not mutually exclusive. But I don't know. I want to see a little bit more of the old Drake, and maybe we see at the end of camp like we did last year. When the first 3 weeks, everyone was going, Seriously?
Right. Yeah. And the hero ball stuff, I get it. It can get you in trouble, but also there's some special moments.
Yes.
Come like, man. I just had a thought, man. One thing we did not talk about was the kicker battle, which to me
Mm,
has actually been really good this year.
yeah.
I don't think Andy Borregales is going to lose this battle because he's been really good. But like Parker Romo's been impressive. I actually think the Pats have like 2 NFL kickers on their roster, which has actually been kind of fun.
Is Barker Romo missed? I know he was bad in the spring.
See, I think Mike Reese had him down for a miss. I have him down perfect, so there might be a little. But I asked Alex Barth after practice today, and I think me and Alex both have him perfect through training camp. Through
Yeah.
10 days.
There are a couple kicks I checked in on, like this was something serious at kick and training camp, that even upon replay, the team said it went over the upright. So like at that point, it is the eye of the beholder, and the beholders are not there because for the most part, they don't have NFL referees down below looking up, being like, oh, that was good or no good. So whether he's perfect or not, he's been better than Borregales, who has not missed a kick to his credit in the last week plus. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think people care a whole lot. They're just like, tell me the kicker come week 1.
Yeah,
This
right.
is the best case scenario. Like this is going very well for the Patriots, that ultimately you have to make a hard decision because both guys have been really, really good.
The kicker battle has been more entertaining than the third string tight end battle for sure. Hands down, man.
Yeah, no question. All right, here's Mark Daniels. Read him at MassLive. Follow him, of course, anywhere that you can. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate you coming on. And now we have to pivot to a guy I wish I could even say I was friends with, which is Chris Mason, your colleague. But we'll do our best here.
Good luck, man. Good luck.
See ya. Prize Picks is back. Well, to be clear, it didn't really go anywhere. But we know most of the sports have, right? Patriots still not playing. There's no football, no basketball, no hockey. But baseball is here. And thank goodness for this, because I'm on vacation. Still playing Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to people who have never even played fantasy sports. Because here's how simple it is. I'm watching the Sox on Tuesday at home, and I think Cedar Rafaela, who's on fire, or Jaron Duran, who's not, or Raymond Anthony, who's really coming into form, will have a certain number of hits or runs, or maybe a home run, or Walker Buehler's going to give up a lot of hits, but maybe bounce back. Boom! Those thoughts, those takes turn into cash, but only at Prize Picks. And here's how it works. All you have to do is build a lineup of 2 to 6 players. Every player comes with a stat. It could be hits, it could be runs, it could be walks. And we get into the football season, yards, touchdowns, you name it. They've got more stats and players than you can think of. You look at that player, you see their stat. You pick more or you pick less. And you do this for 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 players. Lock in your lineup, and that's it. You can win cash. Withdraw it via Venmo, Apple Pay, however you want, quick and easy deposits. Again, you can mix players from sports, different games, teams, whatever it is. The best place to win cash while watching sports. So don't wait anymore. I haven't, still playing all summer and will straight through the end of the year. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. This is the best part. To get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, as promised, the best name segment I will have on this show all year, the Bill Belichick-in with Chris Mason of MassLive. Back from North Carolina. Did you fly back this morning, Monday, last night? Well, where you been?
I flew back late Saturday night. Got delayed, as all flights get delayed now. But yeah, initially I was going to go down there from Friday to Monday, assuming like it'd be kind of like a Patriots camp, where you have a few days down there because I got the opening date, and then realized that's not how Bill's running things in North Carolina. He had an availability on Saturday morning, 8:30 a.m., and will not speak again or have any media access until Wednesday. And then it will be once a week throughout camp. So he's shut it down there. So yeah, I called an audible and flew home Saturday night instead of staying in deserted Chapel Hill for 3 more days.
Smart. So in his press conference, backtracking, I teased this at the beginning, but the point is for everyone to read the story. Quote, can 73-year-old Bill Belichick conquer a new frontier at North Carolina? This is Chris's story. You should read it. I've read it twice, and it gives you a look at what things felt and looked and sounded like at his first day, first practice, first press conference on Saturday. So that was, you go down Saturday, let's do it this way. You just take us through the moment you stepped on the plane at Logan to the moment you stepped off the plane at Logan and came home. Like, tell us everything about what happened down there.
Sure. So I got in Friday afternoon and wanted to, I've never been to Chapel Hill before. I wanted to walk around. I wanted to see what is it like there. had a lot of recommendations. He was like, stop here, stop here, stop here, stop here. And I was like, okay. And he was giving recommendations as if it was going to be like October, not early September where there's nobody there. But I mean, that's kind of what it was. Chapel Hill was going around to, a few of these different restaurants, bars that are supposed to be really famous. And they had like maybe a dozen people, not a lot going on. It's a quiet time of year there. So I was like, okay, check that out. I'm sure it'll be really lively when I go back in a month for the opener. It's going to be a different scene, but now not a whole lot going on there. And so then Saturday morning, I stayed at a hotel that was probably like a 20-minute walk from the facility because I also wanted to walk there the next day and try and really get a feel for, what Chapel Hill is like, what it's going to be like and everything. Walked over there, went past, they have a fraternity court, it's called, that just had Natty Light and Coors Light cans everywhere, like clearly next to a beer pong table that had been used the night before. I was like, okay, this is a little taste of the college town here.
Are we sure that was not a lasting shrine to our mutual friend Chris Cotillo? Just the cheap beer strewn everywhere carelessly, as we surely know that he was back in the day.
It sure could have been, and it looked like. I mean, when I walked back later at like 1 p.m., the beer cans were all still out there. So who's to say they haven't been there for years now? Thanks to Chris Cotillo. But yeah, got to the stadium and it was interesting. The first familiar face that I saw like on the stadium wasn't Bill. It was Drake May. They had a big like Drake poster and a big Sam Howell poster side by side with some quotes about, Tar Heel football and everything. And I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting. Probably got there like a half hour early for Bill's press conference. We could not get into the facility, even though there were a ton of people in there. So a bunch of reporters were just like hanging in this like little area that was way too hot. So that was fine. And then, 8:30, Bill comes out and it was really standard. It was really, really similar to a Patriots press conference where, he has his opening statement, talks about how, they're going to be easing into things with the first day of camp. And it's, one of those probably 3-minute statements that's just going on and, touching a few different things. Then he fielded questions for maybe 15 more minutes, if that. It might have been a little less, but it's interesting there too, where like it's a totally different media corps than in Boston, where because it's a college town, one, there's like some student journalists there, and two, there's a lot of like inside Carolina type places where the media members are wearing like UNC garb to this press conference and a lot of Carolina blue and stuff. So it's different speed. I would say it was probably like half of them like that, and then half like normal, more expected journalists there. And yeah, Bill answered questions.
Did he recognize you at all?
So I requested a one-on-one through Carolina PR ahead of time, and that was declined. So he knew I was there. But no, he was very businesslike there, where it was funny. After he declined the one-on-one, I was kind of like, okay, in that case, like for the story angle, I kind of wanted to just go in and almost audit the press conference, kind of like when a principal comes in and just like sits in the back of the classroom and is like, what's actually going on here?
Yeah.
What is this like on a day-to-day basis and everything? So listening to a lot of the questions that were being asked, I could almost tell how Bill was going to answer them before he actually answered them. And there was only one time where it was the way this question was asked, where this reporter started with, Bill, you're like a defensive mastermind, defensive genius, always been on the defensive side of the ball, and then eases into like, and Freddie Kitchens running the offense, and kind of frames this question as like, how is Freddie Kitchens' offense going to go, and will you be involved? And Bill, of course, is like, yeah, I mean, that might have been an accurate characterization when I was a defensive coordinator, but as a head coach, I'm involved in every aspect, offense, defense, special teams, strength, conditioning. He's going through all the different things where he's like, I'm involved in everything. And basically it was like, this will be my offense. I am going to have a lot of input in this offense. It's not going to be the Freddie Kitchens offense, without saying it that bluntly. But just the way the question was being asked, it was immediately like, oh yeah, Bill is going to answer this one a certain way.
Yeah. That was, I don't want to say half the battle, because it's not to say that, every press conference and certainly that game in practice was contentious and definitely not combative. There's a lot of curiosity that we bring, even understanding his approach, and everyone understands his approach to media. But, I would always think, okay, what is he going to say if I answer it this way? And this isn't to say I was in the mind of Bill Belichick. It's to understand that because he was so disciplined, he was so consistent, and then by extension, fairly predictable. But even when you would do that, and you're like, okay, this is the best way to do it, he would default to, I don't know.
Right.
Or you'd have to ask somebody else, or just pretend like they're, your question was somehow flawed. Even if your personal thoughts, your personal feelings, I don't know, you'd have to ask so-and-so.
And I think that was the most frustrating part, right? Because you can like be driving to the stadium and be like, okay, I have this question phrased perfectly where I'm going to disarm it this way and this way with these caveats so he can't like go to that. You think you nailed it. You ask the question and then you still get the, I don't know, you'd have to ask like whatever. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. So then in the story, you get to practice. And this was 18 minutes opposite field as you put marooned with all of the other reporters who were very much learning like, okay, you're going to be far away. You're going to get minimal access. Again, which as we detail this is not complaining. This is just the life of what it's like to be out there. And people who are not adjusted to it are likely to complain. So what was it, stretching, just individual drills?
Yeah. So it was honestly, it was kind of hilarious, first of all, with like the local reporters who didn't really know what they were in for. And so it was like a light rain, a mist, and they were outside, of course, because Bill never wants to practice inside no matter what. So I think there was already some irritation that they were outside. And then we get into practice. There's 2 fields at this complex. They are obviously on the far field where you can't see anything really. And yeah, the media's penned into a little space where it's like, okay, you can be on this sideline. You can only go down so far. And, it's fine. I'm used to it. Like covering Bill for 5 years. That's how it always was. So I had my binoculars and was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can still see everything that's going on over there. I was the only one that had binoculars though, because none of these local reporters had any idea that they were going to need binoculars to see what was actually happening at practice.
Yeah.
So, as a sports reporter, you're not always terribly popular, but on that day in Chapel Hill, I became the most popular guy there, where you have all these Carolina reporters walking up to me being like, hey, do you know where Steven Belichick is? Can you see Steven Belichick right now? What about, is Brian? Have you seen Brian? Oh, you get a camera guy like, do you know where Coach Belichick went? It's like, yeah, he's right over there. Like, he's on the 40. I got it all covered.
And what were they used to? Because this is the other part, again, where you talk about limited access. Like colleges, even at North Carolina, or I guess backing away, it depends on the coach, the access, where like the NFL dictates to every team, media needs to be allowed in for X amount of time in the locker room or a practice during training camp, yada, yada, yada. The schools call their shots individually. So Mac Brown, who personality-wise, way he dealt with the media, his openness was the diametric opposite of Bill. And they were doing what, as you detailed in the story?
Yeah, it seemed like they were kind of just like free-range chickens out there where they could go wherever they pleased, monitor the sidelines. The one thing they were asked is don't video 11 on 11 and put it out there. But otherwise, you could stay out for the training camp practice that are open and, wander the sidelines as you see fit, go up and down. And that's very different than the Belichick NFL style experience that they have now. They also mentioned that one of the guys I was talking to said Mac would talk maybe 3 times a week, and he would talk really extensively, like twice as long, maybe 3 times as long as Belichick had that morning. So it's just different speed. But like I said, after covering him in New England, it was very, very consistent with the way he's done things forever.
Yeah, they call themselves the 33rd NFL team down there, which is just, hey, that's taken, by the way. It's a website. It's not a functioning team, the 33rd team. But also hilarious, given a team, as you detail in the piece, is projected to finish 8th in the ACC, which, of course, Bill doesn't care about. You can't control this, can't do anything about that, which is another answer that was kind of fairly predictable. The thing I was going to say earlier, the one time, oddly enough, that I remember being able to walk the sidelines, and this was not between fields, which is, you'd be right there with the players and the coaches, was during a joint practice in Tennessee, Vrabel's second year, right before you joined onto the beat a few months later, and we could go all the way around whatever sideline we wanted, up in the stands, looking at everything. And I remember getting close. And they got media relations people who were doing their jobs and kind of keeping you at a proper distance. And none of us really infringed, but like this was new to all the Patriot coaches and players who would like be hunched over, getting a breather after a drill and be like, what the are you doing over here? Vrabel's not doing that anymore, but it's funny the way that we got that one access one time with Bill, thanks to his not direct successor, but the guy here now, obviously. What surprised you, if anything? Like all of this is predictable and it's very Bill and consistent. He's the most disciplined person maybe I've ever come across in my entire life. But what surprised you?
Honestly, nothing really surprised me the entire time I was there, which is somewhat, I mean, I don't know that it can be surprising not to be surprised, but there really wasn't anything like throughout the entire trip where I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe this is happening this way or this is going on this way. And it's also funny, too, where people who like aren't fluent in Belichick don't realize that he can be funny when he wants to be. He can be really insightful when he wants to be. It's almost like he has these different speeds where even at ACC Media Day last week, I like watched the press conference there and he was like a media darling. It felt like one of the Super Bowl press conferences, where suddenly he flips a switch and it's totally different. But then, even in this press conference Saturday morning, this time where he cracked a joke, made everyone laugh. He has a little dry humor to him. Like, he can totally do that, especially when they're still in this kind of honeymoon phase and everything. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was really consistent with who he's always been. And maybe that's the surprising part, is that it doesn't seem like anything's really changing down there. That said, in terms of scheme on the field stuff, all we got at this practice was stretch. They did a quick, like, special teams type drill where this is where I was like, okay, Bill is like almost literally picking up where he left off in New England, where they open with this special teams drill. And Bill talks to the holder for a little bit and then decides, I'm just going to show you. He gets down on one knee, like on this like rainy turf. And the next rep, he is just orchestrating it right from the middle of the rep in the holder spot. It's like, okay, yeah, this is Bill, still very special teams oriented, still wants everyone to know, like, he's still a coach at his core. And then they just had an individual, like normal individual periods after that. And then everyone got kicked out. So you didn't get to see anything they were actually doing,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a whole new scheme coming. Maybe there's something that's going to be shocking against TCU. But otherwise, like the way he's handling things, the way he's running the show, it's all very, very familiar.
So it seems like there's still an acclimation period, as the players are and they ramp up, but also for the media there and the fans, which, we can pivot from like the press conference talk now, but just your perception or things you heard. I don't know if you picked up a newspaper of how he's being received by people who have cared about UNC, care about it now while he's there, but also will care about UNC after he's gone. Are they taking to the Bill Belichick experience, understanding most of the headlines so far have not been about football since he got there?
Yeah, I think that like the UNC fan base at its core just wants football to start, because there have been, so many of these almost non-football stories. And I think there is like an anxiousness, really just like an eagerness for the season to begin, so they can really see, Bill Belichick is the highest paid employee in the state of North Carolina. He's the highest paid state employee at $10 million a year. I think they want to see, what is this money buying? What can he do with this program? Can he turn it around? And it's the ACC, it feels pretty wide open. If they put like some wins together, they could really go on a run, or they can be, the same kind of North Carolina team. It's almost always been there as long as I've been following college football, where they're, middling, whatever. And, then basketball season starts and that's what they're pivoting to, and then they become irrelevant. So it's going to be fascinating to see. And I think, the biggest thing, there's definitely an excitement and eagerness and almost, an anxiousness, I think, to see what this is going to look like.
It's so funny, things like that, where you're the highest paid employee in the state, comes up when you're losing, or so-and-so's contract. We're paying $90 million, like in Milton Williams has 2 sacks through November. Everyone's like, we're paying blah, blah, blah from the Patriots for this guy to have 2 sacks. Like, it only matters when things are bad. And then when things are good, you're like, yeah, this is fine. I'm curious. The one other thing that stuck out, because I thought this number was lower, you had 70 new players on the roster there. Yeah.
Yep.
Like, do people, and I understand, Max Johnson, their quarterback, who's the incumbent, is going to compete with the kid from South Alabama, who is well regarded in the transfer portal. Like, there are some familiar faces at key spots. But what, if anything, was said about that? Like, this would be the equivalent of Vrabel coming in here, and he turned over half of the roster. But this is going basically 40 out of the 53 players would be new. Like, what about that stuck out to people that you heard or talked to?
So actually, going back to Bill's press conference, this was one of the most, I think, insightful answers that he gave, and like one of the most informative things, where somebody asked him about not having a preseason, where he's always had one. Of course, you have preseason games. And after turning over the roster, like, what's that going to look like? And Bill, I don't think Bill has ever been unprepared for something, as long as I've covered him or anything, where he's always doing his homework, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's done the legwork. There's things that could still surprise him, but he immediately was like, yeah, I've talked to other college coaches about this already and trying to adjust to it. But the reality is, there's an unknown. There's going to be, especially for us, even more of an unknown, just because we have so many new places, so many new faces, so many new pieces in here, that it's hard to predict. And I think until they really get rolling in camp, it's going to take a while for that to gel. And it'll be fascinating to see what it looks like, just because, when he was rolling with Tom Brady in New England, September was basically an extension of the preseason. It's like, all right, figure stuff out. You can start. Yeah. You can start 2-2 and you're going to be fine down the stretch eventually if you figure it out. College, it's not really working that way. If you fall behind early, you end up staying behind most of the time, even with the expanded CFP. So they need to come out like firing. And obviously it's a huge, huge national spotlight on Labor Day, where they're getting TCU. The Coaches Poll came out today. UNC didn't have a single vote in it. So around the I was going to say league, around the NCAA, apparently not a ton of optimism, or maybe, I don't know, not enough to give them a top 25 vote at this point. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how that goes.
I like that slip up because it was just like one of my favorite things in the story was Bill going, I've coached plenty of Saturdays. When we go out on Saturdays, this is what we'll do. All right, but that leads me to my last question because it's August 4th. Who knows is the answer. But if you had to take a guess about how this goes, and I'll start because I wasn't down there. I've not spent a whole lot of time reading or listening to what will go down there, but the little that we've covered, brand new coaching staff, coach who has never been in college before, 70 new players adjusting to new schemes and places and coaching styles, all meshing together versus a TCU team, which is not great, but it's going to roll in and have a lot more continuity and understanding of its identity. I think this is going to be a rough start for North Carolina. That might probably ends up like 500, maybe 5-7. And the newness of the roster gives you another year. He signed a 5-year deal. It's effectively a 3-year contract. But there's just not a whole lot here I see, even when you just go by the stars of the roster and recruiting and people know who have been in college football forever, or even just a couple of years, like the talent is the talent. That's never more true than in college because the gaps are wider than ever. And North Carolina's on the wrong side of that gap. So I think it'll be a rough start. I think we'll get one big win. We go, okay, that was a Bill Belichick win, an upset. But beyond that, I think this is going to be rough.
Well, and it's fascinating that you say the talent is the talent, right? Because in New England, that's ultimately what led to his downfall is the roster he put together was really bad at the end. And so how is this roster going to be in North Carolina? Like, there's no doubt he can coach, but how's it going to be? Ultimately, for a prediction, I think they'll be bowl eligible, but they're not going to go to a good bowl game. I think you're looking at like a 7-6 type, like, okay, they're going somewhere. They might be back at the Fenway Bowl, like that sort of thing. But I don't think they're going to win the ACC. I don't think anything like that will happen. I think they'll be competitive, and then next year will be the real litmus test. Like, have they improved Ken with like a full offseason, or does Bill try to jump in, go somewhere else, switch? I don't think it's going to happen at this point. After being down there, he seems pretty entrenched, but you never know.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll be rooting for the Mayo Bowl. I don't know how prestigious that is, but we know that the winning coach just gets absolutely dunked in elements, and they don't really have a choice in that. So I mean, in North Carolina too.
It would also just be hilarious for Bill to win the Mayo Bowl after the way things played out in New England.
Well done. All right, he's Chris Mason, MassLive, pal. Thanks for taking some time, and honestly, I hope you go back. You get free range of a lot of different places and travel and stories, and who knows? If I'm totally wrong, dead wrong, if they're 7-0, 8-0, could happen. I hope you go back and have another story for us.
Yeah, hey, I'll be back for the season opener regardless. I booked that flight earlier, so
nice. Oh my god, I can't wait. And I'll say this too before we go. Like, there's a real fascination, which I think can go unsaid. But the reason we bring him up is obvious. He's the greatest coach of all time. Huge seismic change going down to college and flipping over the whole program. Even if I'm doubtful that this goes well, I'm absolutely fascinated in a neutral sense to see how this goes. Like, this is it's an unprecedented story.
It is, and I mean, almost one of the most compelling parts is he's 73. He's at a point, where a lot of people are either retired, they're winding their careers down. He's putting more on his plate. He's saying, I'm going to try something totally new. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. I think, it's really compelling either way.
Yeah. All right. You can read the story. Can 73-year-old Bill Belichick conquer a new frontier at North Carolina? You'll be back down there in a month. In the meantime, thank you for your time, sir.
You got it, bud. Thanks for having me.